In today's lesson, we are going to take what we learned yesterday about combining HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and create a face. Now mine's a little hideous here. Yours isn't going to be quite as involved as mine. I've got like 215 lines of code already, and I'm not sure if I'm going to add anything else or not. But basically what I've done here is I have a bunch of different divs, a div for the face, for the left eye, right eye, and actually those are the eye sockets, and the left eyeball, right eyeball, etc., etc., etc. And then using CSS, I have repositioned all those to make the face. So let me close that one and switch over to this. So to do that, let's start off just by creating the face div. So I'm creating a div just like we did yesterday. I'm giving it an ID. I'm going to call this one face. And it's going to be an empty div, and then I'm going to come up here and create some rules for the face. So just like we did with the previous assignment, that's not quite do 400. Let's do 350 pixels, and then let's say like 475. Give it a color. Sorry, background color. Color is just going to change the font. We don't have any text in there, and what do I want to do for my face? Let's make this face cornflower blue. Why not? Alright, let's test this. Make sure we have a div showing up on here. Okay, there we go. Looks good. Alright, so that's what we did yesterday as far as just adding a div and adding some color with, we also did a border. If I want to move it around, which is going to be necessary to be able to place like the eyes, the nose, the mouth inside of our drawing, I need to change the way it is positioned. So if I come down here, I'm still in my CSS. If I do position, I have a number of different position options. I have absolute, fixed, relative, static, sticky. These other ones we really don't need to worry about right now. But the one that we're going to be focused on in this lesson is absolute. I want to fix it absolutely on the page based on how many pixels from the top, left, etc. So I'm going to choose absolute. Now if I save this, refresh it, nothing happens yet. But now I can change that positioning. Now that it's absolute, I can change it. So I would say I want to position it from the top 150 pixels. Save that, refresh, and now we've moved it down 150 pixels from the top. If I remove position absolute and refresh, it ignores this because by default the position is, if I put this back in, the position is static. So I'll put that in there, refresh, nothing, ignores this. And that's because static is treated basically just like top to bottom. So it reads this, says, okay, this is the first element, I'm putting it at the top. If there's another one below this, it put it below. And it just organizes things from top to bottom, completely ignoring where we want to place it. It just uses the browser default. So in order to break out of that default, I need to tell it I want it absolute positioned, and I want it for 150 pixels from the top or whatever you want. Then I'm going to move it from the left. I'll move it over, let's try 300 pixels. Okay, there we go. I could have also done from the bottom, from the right, but I usually tend to, unless I have a reason to be putting it down here in the bottom corner, I tend to position from top left and move it over and down however many pixels I want. Alright, so that's using the absolute position. Now, I want to look at how can I round these corners, because if you remember from my picture, my eyeballs were round, the head was not completely squared off or rectangular shape like this. To do that, I can adjust the border dash radius. And let's start with something small like 20 pixels. So if I give it a 20 pixel border radius, each border is going to have a radius of 20 pixels, which basically, I mean, you can think of a little 20 pixel circle in here with a radius of 20, so it is rounding off the corner, which doesn't really round that off very much. So if I change this to, let's say, like 200, what's that going to do? Oh, there we go. Now we're definitely looking like a face. We're starting to look like maybe a member of the Blue Man Group or something. The amount of curve you want to those edges is going to be entirely up to you, but the larger the number, the more curved it gets. Alright, so that takes care of border radius, background, etc. One last thing, how could I now put like an eye in here and then hover over the eye and get like a winking effect? Well, first let's add the eye. Okay, I added a div for my eye, and then I added my styles. So I set the width to 120 pixels, height 60 pixels, background color white, position absolute, down 200 from the top because I know that my face was down, there we go, 150, so it's probably not going to be low enough. I'm going to go ahead and adjust. I've not looked at this yet, so I don't know what it's going to look like. Left 350, and then border radius 30. So let's try that, and I'll probably have to adjust from there. Actually, that's not horrible. I still like it down a little bit more. So let's try 300. There we go, good enough. All right, so then I would put another eye, nose, mouth, etc. But what would I do to get this to wink? Well, to get to wink, I'm going to need to do a JavaScript effect and something like a mouse over to get it to change the height of the eye. That's what we're going to be changing if we want it to wink. So I'm going to come down here to my scripts, and I'm going to create a function. So I'll just go ahead and call it function wink. And then I am going to do document.getElement by ID, and I'm looking for the eye. And I don't have another eye yet, so that's fine, but I'd probably call this like left eye, right eye, etc. if I were finishing the project. Dot, and then to change the height, well, height is a part of the style, so I'm going to do .style.height equals, and right now I set it to a height of 60. I'm going to change that to like 20 pixels and see what that looks like. And I didn't need that there, I need that there. All right, so I created a function. Now I need to come into my div and do the on mouse over, on mouse click, or whatever I want to do to get it to wink. So remember to add this in. This is the same as what we did yesterday. So I want to wink. And don't forget the empty parentheses, that is a function. All right, so we're going to refresh it. If I hover over the eye, there we go. Now, of course, I don't have a mouse on mouse leave, so it's never changing back to the original size. So what I would have to do here is something like wink, maybe off, set it back to my original height, which was 60. Do an on mouse leave. And this is going to be wink. Guess I could have done open or something, but all right, let's try that. There we go. Great, so the assignment then is just to make a face, add in a JavaScript effect to one of the elements, or multiple if you want to. The face does not have to be overly sophisticated, but I'll show you a couple examples here from some students from last year. All right, here's one example from last year. So this one would have 2 divs for the hair, 1 for the face, 2 for each eye because we have the eyeball and the pupil, the mouth, the tongue, and then another div there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It looks like 11 divs. Can't remember if I counted the face twice or not. 10 or 11 divs for that one. So a little bit of detail there. The next one is this one, fewer divs. 1 for the head, 1 for the body, 1 eye, or 2 eyes, and a mouth. So that one's a little less sophisticated. It doesn't matter how detailed you decide to be, but spend some time playing around with it on the assignment and be as creative as you would like.